Posted by you/Juicy Gargoyle. My son needed me and woke me up through a dream. My son is 5 and was recently diagnosed with autism. His speech is very limited, but he can say several words and a few phrases. Yesterday, he had a doctor's appointment and had to get his vaccinations. Of course, after getting vaccinations, you feel pretty crummy and are often sick the next day. Fast forward to this morning, around 6 a.m., he is sleeping beside me and I'm asleep as well. I was having a dream that we were at my grandparents' house and that he, my son, was upstairs playing. While still dreaming, I hear him clearly yelling, "Mommy. Mommy. Mommy. Mommy." Which is what he will usually do when he needs my help. So in the dream, I go to him and as soon as I pick him up, he starts gagging. I then immediately wake up from the dream. Not even 20 seconds after I wake up, I hear him gagging in his sleep, about to vomit. I, confused AF at this point but in autopilot mode, then turn him on his side and hold him while he pukes. This was so wild to me because he was in a deep sleep and could not have called out for me in the clear, bold tone that he used in my dream. He was right beside me, so I would have woken up from the clear yelling of "Mommy" multiple times, way sooner. He started gagging after I woke up. When I first looked over at him, he was not gagging. It was literally like 20 seconds after I woke up that he started to gag. I've never been able to communicate with someone else, that is living, via dreams, and have the connection transferred from a dream state to consciousness/reality. So this was odd but cool to me. Just wanted to share and wasn't sure where else to put it. Lol, thanks for listening. Posted by you/Snoo. Dealing with the supernatural, from the perspective of a chaplain. Kia ora, be well. I'm a chaplain for a community church. I deal with many things. One of the aspects of my role is dealing with the spiritual world. I'm specialized in dealing with what we call spiritual warfare, demons, or dark spirits. I've only recently come across this Reddit, but I've read a lot of the posts now and see a lot of the same themes coming up. Having given out the same advice to many different posters, I thought it might be helpful to do a quick do's and do nots. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to convert or evangelize you, but it's better to know what options you have. My advice will be both Christian and general, and comes from a place of study and lifelong interaction with the spiritual world. First, what's a chaplain? A chaplain is a church minister or representative who works in the community, or in the secular/non-religious world, to give mental, physical, or spiritual advice. The advice is often non-religious, although the chaplain is religious. Chaplains will use all of the tools in their toolkit to help someone, which includes counseling, referring to health services, or engaging in religious support like prayer, blessing, or protection, with the person if they're willing, on behalf of the person when they're not present if they're not willing. The best verse to describe a chaplain is always be prepared to give an answer to those who ask you to give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. Let's get into it. Signs of haunting. Always look for the scientific or rational explanation first. Never first assume it is spiritual, until you have the inexplicable. And search hard for logical reasons for signs. Tick all of the boxes in order to be certain. This is a big category I will not be able to fully cover. There will be some stuff missing. Here's the general signs I have seen in person. Foul inexplicable smells. Footsteps. Scratching. Knocking. Temperature fluctuation. Whispering. Feeling of being watching. Inexplicable movement of items. Small visible movements like pulling on blankets or knocking items over. Physical touching, as in being touched. Poked, prodded, grabbed, etc. Sleep paralysis. Hauntings of an individual. This is much more difficult, and very complex. NB. This is really difficult to ascertain. Sometimes it is purely psychological or a mental health issue. You need to get professional psychological intervention first, and then spiritual. A complete change in attitude/behavior. Growling or groaning for no reason. Sudden memory loss with no reason. Inexplicable anger and mood shifts. Hostility to spiritual practice or people. Foaming at the mouth. Sudden substance abuse. Standing and staring for long periods of time. Addictions. Dangerous/self-harming attitudes and behaviors. If it knocks or calls, do not answer. One of the most common beliefs across religions and beliefs is that dark spirits, or demons, require permission to possess a person or area, or to tether to someone and haunt them. But this permission doesn't always need to be explicate. Dark spirits are infamously tricky. Knocking on something, and having it open for you, is the most simple and common form of invitation there is. Like being let through someone's front door after knocking, the invitation is implicit. They will also do things like imitate loved ones, or target children because children have an incredibly active imagination. Not to worry you, but sometimes an imaginary friend is not so imaginary, although most of the time it is. It's just a child engaging in play, imagination, and creativity. But if it calls to you, or knocks, my suggestion is always to rebuke. Rebuke and ward. My rebuke is, I do not permit you, you are not welcome here. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ I command you to leave. For non-religious rebuking, obviously take out the "in the name of Jesus" stuff. Warding is when you put crosses or protections on doorways, or regular blessing/cleansing. Non-religious warding would be making sure to shut, and even lock, all doors. Never under any circumstance try and communicate with these spirits. Some spirits are benevolent, but if it is trying to trick you, it is evil and has to be rebuked. Some examples I've seen have been knocking on windows, porch doors, walls, bedroom doors, or even front doors. Or pretending to be a loved one calling out to elicit a "come here." All of these instances require strength, courage, and firm words. Sinister spirits love fear, so find whatever it is that bolsters you and use it. Obviously for me it's Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. White sage is not a cure-all. So often we see people advocating the use of white sage, but this can be a bit of a misnomer. White sage is a native North American practice. Dark spirits respect authority. We don't know why, and there are many theories, but for whatever reason the spiritual world respects authority. If you are not Native American and you wave white sage around to cleanse a house, it will not fully do so because you don't have the authority to practice. It's also because white sage is for certain kinds of cleansings, more responsive in nature, like someone dying in a house. For alternative example, as a Western chaplain I will use frankincense and myrrh, and it has worked every time I've used it to cleanse a house or bless someone. When I was younger I tried sage and I worsened the symptoms of a haunting, hence the investigation into it. Dark spirits are angry and malevolent, and if you show you know they're there and you're trying to get rid of them, but don't actually get rid of them, you will anger them. My suggestion for a cleansing is to find a spiritual elder. A spiritual elder could be a chaplain from a local church, or it could be a shaman from the local tribe. Sorry, I'm from New Zealand and tribe is the word we use. Either way you need someone with authority, who knows what they're doing. Don't try and fix these things alone by essentially co-opting another culture or religion's practice. You don't have the authority to do so. However, I will say you can still rebuke. This point is absolutely about the use of symbols, herbs, incense, and other cleansing rituals. You can still command something to leave you, and your house or family, alone. Immature interaction with the spiritual world is hugely dangerous. Things follow you. It's the same old trope, but it's a trope for a reason. A seance in a graveyard, a Ouija board at a party, going to a haunted abandoned building in the night, all these things we love to do to scare ourselves. All of these things are intensely dangerous. I can't tell you how many times, my support has basically been a spiritual investigation to find and solve a cause. If you know where it came from, or what it's connected to. Much easier to deal with a malevolent spirit. That being said, it's also one of the most common reasons I've seen for hauntings. People have invited the interest of a spirit with their silly behavior, and it's just not worth the risk. If you want to experience it vicariously through videos and let other people take the risk. If you do muck around, you know what I'm going to say. Find yourself a chaplain, or spiritual leader, get yourself and your living environment blessed, rebuke, and ward. Of course my first suggestion is gonna be don't muck around with it. Also, to cover here, things like living on native burial grounds, haunted forests, and graveyards, all require specific interventions. You need to know the problem. For example, living on a native burial ground or battleground. A grievance has occurred and there are angry spirits. Anything to do with a wrongdoing toward the native population requires native reconciliation, ritual, and intervention. Benevolent spirits. These definitely exist. You will find conflicting information surrounding benevolent spirits and what to do with them, but personally my suggestion will be to move them on. Sometimes they are malevolent spirits up to no good and tricking you, though sometimes they are the spirits of loved ones. However, they don't belong here anymore. Grief can be a powerful tool, so too can love. If you think it's truly the benevolent spirit of a loved one, then if you love them, let them go. Give them peace and freedom, bless them, and cleanse the environment. Magic/witchcraft. As a Christian chaplain, my job is to tell you to avoid this. However, the reality is that plenty of people engage in this area of the supernatural perfectly safely. If you are Wiccan, or a determined practitioner, my only request is that you find someone in your faith to mentor you so that you can do it safely. People messing around in witchcraft without having an elder to guide them is another horrendously dangerous way of inviting malevolent spirits, And I admit the same can be said about many Christian practices. Sleep paralysis or supernatural? This is probably the most common question I see, but there is a relatively simple answer. Is there anything else going on other than the sleep paralysis? While sleep paralysis can be terrifying, and a tool of dark spirits, sometimes it is simply sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is when your conscious and subconscious have not fully reconnected, you are awake but not yet physically in control. Supernatural occurrences usually bring in a whole raft of other things. Unable to sleep because it feels like you're being watched, other telltale signs of hauntings like light switches turning on and off in the night, footsteps, temperature fluctuations. If you're not sure, my suggestion is to sleep on your side as often as possible. If it's sleep paralysis, it will still happen. If supernatural, it will stop, because you can no longer so easily be pinned. The single most helpful piece of advice. Be courageous, and remember that fear and anger are the same emotion with different responses. Current evidence indicates they're from the same part of the brain. The purpose for many cultural war dances was to turn fear into anger. For Christians it's a lot easier, or any faith practitioner really. For me, when I'm confronted with something spiritual, I stick to my go-to: I do not permit you. You are not welcome. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ I command you to leave. If you can't muster the ability to be clear, logical, and concise, then I honestly recommend you get angry and let it be known. How f***ing dare this thing come into your house and FCK with you? How dare it follow you around and make your life harder? Tell it to FCK off. Conclusion. This is a very complicated subject. While I'm specialized in dealing with it, I am far from the single source of all that is right true about the supernatural. I could be completely off the mark. I'm only teaching what I've learned, and what I've learned is an evolution of what I've been taught. Feel free, always, to PM me if you're confused, worried, scared, don't know what to do, or need help finding someone to help you. I'm in a privileged position where I can ask someone to help you without you needing to feel ashamed if they think you're crazy. I'm glad to be a middle person. Posted by you/childoffgod_Zilla. Encounter with a vampire? Last night I responded to a post in AMA to a guy who said he encountered a vampire. His story was very similar to what happened to me when I was young. It haunts me almost 35 years later. This was my response: I'd like some feedback. When I was young, I was walking home, right at twilight, and approached by a man who just seemed wrong. I lived in a kind of rural neighborhood in the desert and knew everybody who lived nearby. I did not know this man. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, so that was normal, but everything else about him instantly terrified me. As I walked down the dirt road to my house, he paralleled me in the brush with his gaze locked right on me. The brush on the side of the road is thick mesquite and you can't move through it without getting caught up and scratched all to hell. This man moved right through it. He never touched a single branch, he actually moved through it. He passed me up and came out into the road ahead of me, standing right in my path. He smelled so bad, like rotting meat. He smiled at me and asked me to come with him to see a hurt dog. He never blinked and didn't look like he was breathing. His teeth were yellow/brown and sharp. His smile was terrifying. His eyes looked cloudy and gray. I remember not being able to move, and though I wanted to scream, I couldn't get a sound out. He reached his hand out and wanted me to take it. Right then, my dog, a big German Shepherd, came sprinting out of the brush, silent and fast. He jumped and snapped at the man's face. The man was so fast. He avoided my dog and was across the road instantly. My dog went at him again and the man fled into the brush. Again, he didn't disturb a single branch. As soon as the man fled, so did I. I sprinted home, which was a couple hundred yards away. When I got home, I noticed that I had urinated in my pants. My dog came home later that night, severely injured. We had to put him down. My dad told me he was in a dog fight. I knew he wasn't. I never told my parents and I don't know why. Posted by you/death_munchkin. The ghostly girl who's been following me for years is fading. In the comments of a previous post I made, I explained a common reoccurring experience I have where I can see a young child, girl, sitting at the side of my bed at night, and sometimes I can feel her reaching out and touching my face. I have no idea who she is or why she's there, but she's been with me for a long time. Recently I noticed that she just wasn't there anymore. I didn't notice for a few weeks since I was just so used to her being around I never bothered checking for her, but I just one day noticed she was gone. Until last night, that is. Last night was the first time in a while I saw her, and she's changed a lot. She's bigger, older, and more faint. She's transparent, and I could actually see her bones through her hand when she reached out to touch my face like she normally does. And I couldn't feel her like I normally do, and then she just vanished. I don't know why, but I feel sad yet happy and confused. I feel like that's it. She's gone now. I don't know why, I just know that last night was the last time I'll see her. I don't know why I feel so sad. Posted by you/GladOsher08. Something outside my house? Recently, after a bad divorce, my dad, whom I live with, started dating. He started dating a lady with 4 daughters, and they visit and sleep over every second weekend or if they have the chance. Now, usually they arrive on the Friday, and leave on the Sunday, but they arrived last week Friday and left yesterday. Ever since Tuesday, I've felt like something was in the yard, watching, but only at night. Maybe it's my fear of the dark, but I digress. Thursday was when it hit its peak. I couldn't sleep that night. I spent the entire night in a small room with my dog, watching YouTube and listening outside for any noises, because my gut told me something just didn't feel right. What kicked it off was that my stepmom, they aren't married but I tease her, and I are in the kitchen, which is really small. You could have 5 people standing shoulder to shoulder, and take up the kitchen. It isn't wide either. You can have 2 children stand abreast, you can't get past them. I'm at the stove, and to my right, she's by the kettle, making tea. We're chatting, and over the kettle I hear one sharp and hard knock on the door. I stared at the door for a good 3 seconds before opening and saw nothing. I asked her if she heard the knock, and she told me she thought I knocked on it. She then told me the next morning that when she went out for a smoke, between 3 to 5, she stood in the doorway and watched as, while none of the trees shook from wind, the branch on the far side of a tree directly across from the back door in the neighbor's yard started shaking, and she watched as the shaking went anti-clockwise across the branches until it was in our yard. She finished her smoke and locked the door. I don't know what this could be paranoia mixed with sensory overload from having 4 youngish girls running up and down the house. I'm used to it being my dad and I, or if it is something paranormal that stalks our house at night when it senses the girls are here. Can I get theories or opinions, please? Posted by you/LiquidGold83. I grew up in a haunted house. I grew up in Connecticut, USA. As many of you may know, Connecticut was settled very early, so there are many really old houses. Mine wasn't one of them. Ours was built after the boom of World War II vets returning. My mom and dad were either the second or third owners of the house, and only later did my older brother and I find out an old lady died in our house. I remember one summer night, our bedroom windows were wide open since we had no central air. There was no breeze to speak of and only the sounds of crickets in the night air. My brother and I shared this bedroom at the time, and we had a globe on top of our dresser. The globe started to slowly spin and gradually got faster and faster. We started freaking out and yelling for my mom. I then grabbed a little souvenir Red Sox baseball bat and knocked it off the dresser. My mom burst in and yelled at us to go to bed. Nothing else like that happened for a while. A few years later our house got remodeled and my brother had his own room. He used to keep a guitar in his closet, and one night he came running into my bedroom saying the guitar was playing by itself in the closet. So we creeped back into his room and you could hear the guitar strumming. We opened the closet door and nothing was in there except clothes, shoes, and the now silent guitar. Needless to say, he slept in my room that night. A few years later I was playing the piano in our sunroom. Next to the piano we had a giant, beautiful grandfather clock. This clock could play 3 different songs and would play the whole song on the hour every hour. It was about 3:15 in the afternoon. The only reason I remember is because my mom had just gotten home and she always got home then. I was playing the Westminster chimes on the piano and without fail the grandfather clock played it too. My mom and I are totally weirded out at the point because it was 3:15 and the clock was set to play a completely different song. Those are main 3 weird things I remember, but my mom, dad and brother also had weird things happen too, but never anything malicious, so it never really bothered us. Posted by you/snoo. I work in a church, and it's the creepiest place in the world. It's an old church, but not like cool old. It's not Victorian, it was built in the 40s, but it's a community church in a poor area and we've seen some broken souls come through the doors. We are open to any and every one, we're probably the most accepting church I know of. But this does result in a lot of sad stories. I'm a chaplain, but I don't force my beliefs on anyone and I'm not here to evangelize you. I work alone in the church often. It's a low-paying job, I'm the only full-time worker for the church, but I do it because my background is in working with kids and young people who are on a trajectory to join a gang. I have a degree in youth development, master's in community leadership, and am trained in institutionalized psychology and chaplaincy. I don't do it for the money. I have a belief that our church is either haunted, or targeted by spirits because of the work we do in the community. We're grassroots, humility is key, and we're not afraid of spiritual warfare, which mostly looks like counseling people who are scared, giving out food boxes to the needy, blessing new buildings or places of death, lots of different spiritual things. My belief is that as a consequence of the people we help and the things we do, we draw negative spiritual attention to ourselves. I got a video the other day. I don't want it to go viral, I'll get in trouble with my church, but it was the usual, doors opening and closing themselves and heavy footsteps in the church area while I was alone, and all doors and windows closed. I work in a small chapel office off to the side. The main building is usually locked up tight for security reasons, even has a different alarm. So I recorded myself going through the building. I'm Maori, New Zealand native, so I carry a traditional weapon that is blessed, patu, with me in a flax bag for blessing things. I can attach a photo of that too if people are interested. This video would be decried as a fake, and I'm only sharing here because I'm hoping I'll be believed. To break it down, this is on a Monday. Our church is cleaned on Sunday evenings, and I'm by myself in the building on Mondays. The door is 2 meters, and when I first see what is on the door I kind of get frozen with shock, and then try and lighten my heart with humor. I dunno, it was a weird response. I acknowledge that maybe an adult with small hands did this, and that the cleaners missed it. The reason I turned the camera around, midway through, is because those doors swing both ways and I wanted to catch if they swung strangely behind me or if I could catch anything. Again, if you don't believe me, fine, I understand. There are loads of frauds and fakes, and people chasing likes. But this is real to me, and I have no solid explanation for it. Posted by u/alternative. Yak 7079. Sleep paralysis? Last night, I think I had a sleep paralysis. I closed my eyes and suddenly I woke up. I feel like I saw 2 forces of energy. I couldn't move, the energies weren't strangling me or anything. To be honest, I don't remember much right now. All I just remember is the feelings and sensations I felt. I felt panic that I couldn't move. I was aware of what was going on. Definitely there was 2 energy forces. They weren't doing anything to me, I don't think. I just saw them. I'm so confused right now. A lot of things happened that day that I think contributed to me seeing or experiencing this kind of paralysis. 1. I went thrifting in the afternoon that day and brought some clothes. What if some ill energy was stuck to those clothes and now is latching themselves to me too? Before I went to bed I remember seeing videos on TikTok about spirit guides and I remember saying to myself I want to meet my spirit guides, so maybe I met my spirit guide 3, or maybe the way I slept and woke up messed with my head or some and let me see things I shouldn't have. Let me explain more. So that night I slept from 7 to 9, woke up at 9:30 and did some homework and went back to sleep at 11, and I haven't gotten much sleep at week. What's really bothering me is the clothes thrift one, because what if that is true? I thrift so often and now I don't know, I'm lost and am confused is all I can say. I don't know what to do or what that was. It was my first time.